Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be ranking the Disney and Universal parks in Orlando to see which one comes out on top. I have made many videos on Disney, and I know most of you guys watching are Disney fans. However, after my most recent visit to Universal, my rankings may be very controversial to all the Disney fans out there. Keep in mind that these are just my opinions, and if you disagree, just be respectful about it and feel free to share your rankings in the comments below. Let's start off with number 7, and what do I have in last place? It was very difficult to decide between two parks for last place, and I'm probably going to regret this decision, but unfortunately, I will be putting Animal Kingdom in last place. Before you raise your pitchforks, I'm referring to the current state of Animal Kingdom. If we were talking about prime Animal Kingdom with Dinosaur and Dinoland being fully intact and It's Tough to Be a Bug being up and running, there's no way I'd put this last. But sadly, Animal Kingdom is in a transitional period where there is a ton of construction and there are only about 5 traditional ride experiences at the park. I've always been a huge fan of Animal Kingdom, and I know there are plenty of Animal Kingdom defenders out there, but lately it has just not felt the same. Flight of Passage has never been one of my favorites, which I know is controversial, so if you are a big fan of Flight of Passage, I would understand this at least being one spot higher. Honestly, that's all I have bad to say about Animal Kingdom, and there's plenty to love. This is truly one of the most visually stunning parks out there, and Expedition Everest is amongst my favorite attractions ever built. And of course, I have to throw a mention to Kilimanjaro Safari, which is one of the best attractions that features animals that I've ever seen. Animal Kingdom just really needs to get it together and it'll find its way out of last place. Now moving on to number 6, and this is what I'm guessing all of you thought would be last, and this is Universal Studios Florida. Most of you are probably thinking, how is this not last? It's not very visually appealing, and the rides aren't that great, and there's a much better park next door. Well, let me just present my argument. This park feels classic to me with all of its older rides that have so much charm and heart poured into them. E.T. having Steven Spielberg introduce the ride is something that theme parks today would never do, and the ride itself is a classic dark ride, much like a lot of classic Disney rides. Men in Black also feels classic, even though it isn't particularly great. I love how you shoot actual aliens and not just targets. The Simpsons isn't a great ride either, but I love the humor because I love The Simpsons. And then we have Revenge of the Mummy, which is genuinely a masterpiece. It's part dark ride, part coaster, highly thrilling, and highly themed. What more could you want in an attraction? And then of course we have Diagon Alley, and I may be biased because I love Harry Potter, but Diagon Alley is incredible. Escape from Gringotts has exceptional theming, and the queue is one of my favorites ever. However, this is still only 6th place, and the park does have problems. Like I mentioned earlier, the park does not look great and leaves a lot to be desired visually, but it kind of works in its favor because it's supposed to be a studio. Even some of the rides I mentioned that have heart to them aren't really the best, and VillainCon is actually quite terrible. I definitely enjoy Transformers as well, but it really just feels like a much worse version of Spider-Man. Even the stuff here that's good really doesn't compare to the other parks on this list, except the Mummy of course, which is awesome. Before we get to number 5, I would just like to say that the next 3 could honestly go in any order, and I feel like any ranking I could come up with could change in the blink of an eye. It really came down to which park is the easiest to enjoy. And at number 5, I came up with Hollywood Studios. It hurts to put it this low because Tower of Terror is my favorite attraction ever, and Rise of the Resistance is unlike any theme park attraction I've ever seen. Probably the greatest dark ride ever built. I haven't experienced the Muppets Rock and Roller Coaster yet, but I'm sure it's great, and I also love Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Toy Story Mania is also a highlight, and it's one of my favorite shooting rides ever. Star Tours is also great because I love Star Wars, and it almost never has a line. It's also different every time you ride it, so that's a big plus. Not all the rides here are great, however, because the other 2 rides in Toy Story Land I could really do without. In fact, Toy Story Land as a whole I feel like is a huge miss for me personally. I'm sure the younger crowd loves it, but for me, I'm not a big fan. Slinky Dog Dash is way too mild, and this is coming from someone who loves family coasters. And then Alien Swirling Saucers is probably the worst ride on Disney property. I don't understand why it's so rough, but maybe that's just a me problem. Other than that, the rides are great. The reason I put this at number 5 really came down to park atmosphere. Back in the day, the park had a coherent theme of filmmaking, but now it just seems like a mess of throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Now, to be fair, most of it does stick, but combining a bunch of great ingredients doesn't always make a great final product. Rides on their own I can recognize as being fantastic, but the park feels like a mess. There is currently 2 themed lands basically right next to each other, one of them being Toy Story and the other being Star Wars, and the flow is just not there. Take Animal Kingdom for example. Pandora feels very nature-y and fits in with the park's atmosphere atmosphere perfectly. Back to Hollywood Studios, when you aren't in a themed land, it's themed to filmmaking and Hollywood instead of the films themselves. The park's layout is also not great and the pathways are congested 90% of the time. There's also no shade anywhere, which in the Florida heat gets quite rough. It may sound like I'm complaining just to complain, which I kind of am. I'm just making a case to why I don't have this any higher despite the rides being great. Hollywood Studios, much like Animal Kingdom, has just lost its way over the years, and I hope one day it can find its way back. The reason I'm being so harsh on Hollywood Studios is because it was once one of my favorite parks, and unlike Universal Studios, I was making a case for it being great, and here I'm making a case for it being not so great, even though this one is better. Before we move on, I would just like to ask that if you enjoyed this video at any point, please consider subscribing. It would mean a lot. This next one really hurts. Number 4 for me is Epcot, and I am truly sorry to all the Epcot fans out there, including myself. I'm putting this at number 4 with a very heavy heart, but once again, it seriously just comes down to how much I enjoy being at the park, because in terms of quality, it doesn't get much better than this. This park is truly beautiful and has some of the best food at any theme park. This is one of those parks where if I did not ride a single ride here, I would still be having the time of my life. Let's go ahead and get the negatives out of the way. Frozen is not my favorite. Ratatouille is just okay. And now on to the positive. Literally everything else. You already know that Guardians of the Galaxy is a masterpiece, aside from the dash to the station after the pre-show, and of course, the classic test track which has been recently updated. I didn't really like 2.0 that much, but 3.0 is awesome and feels like classic Epcot. Spaceship Earth is the centerpiece of the park, and even people who have never been to Disney know of the Epcot Ball. The ride in there is a dark ride masterpiece and truly a one-of-a-kind experience. One of my favorite things about Epcot is the supporting ride lineup. Living with the Land is good enough that I would put this up there with some of the Disney classic. And while Soarin' is not my favorite ride ever, a lot of people love it and it is truly relaxing. The Three Caballeros is a simple boat ride, but its charm is just unmatched. Once you get past the big rides, there is still plenty to enjoy, which a lot of parks can't say. Even though earlier I mentioned Frozen and Ratatouille not being the greatest, they are still very high quality theme park attractions that families will love, and it definitely doesn't take away points from Epcot. The rides are not all Epcot has to offer, and in fact the rides are not even why Epcot is so loved. The beauty of Epcot is amazing, and almost every corner of the park has something to be amazed by. The World Showcase in itself is almost like its own separate theme park. The food offerings here truly have something for everyone to enjoy. I start in Canada, by the way, despite Mexico being my favorite pavilion. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but I know there's a big debate on where you should start in the World Showcase. My favorite pavilions are Mexico, like I mentioned earlier, France, and Japan, which doesn't even have a ride. The architecture in Japan is so cool, and the giant store over there is one of my favorite places in Epcot. All of these things come together to make Epcot a genuine masterpiece. The reason why it's number 4 is because I just have more fun at the top 3. I wouldn't necessarily call them better, I just have more fun at them. And when almost all the parks on the list are amongst my favorite parks ever, I feel as if fun factor is a valid way to rank them. Starting off the top 3, I am putting the newest theme park to open up in Orlando. That is of course Epic Universe. When I left Epic Universe for the first time, I would have put this at number 1. And because I don't know how else to discuss this park, let's rapid fire go land by land so I can gush about how much I love this place. Starting off with Celestial Park. Celestial Park features my favorite roller coaster of all time, beating out Guardians of the Galaxy, Hagrid's, and even Velocicoaster. Stardust Racers is everything I have ever wanted in a roller coaster. It feels like every roller coaster that has ever been built, every ride that I've ever been on has led up to Stardust Racers. The launches are powerful, the airtime is violent and whippy, and it probably has my favorite inversion ever, the Celestial Roll. The only inversion that might rival it is the Mosasaurus Roll on Velocicoaster, but the two trains wrapping around each other might give the Celestial Roll the edge. The theme is also awesome, with it being themed to Celestials racing comets, and shout out Dr. Emmett Brown for making it possible with the flux capacitor. Moving on from Stardust Racers, there's also the Celestial Carousel, which I did not get to experience, but but visually it looks great. Moving on from Celestial Park and into Super Nintendo World, which is one of my favorite theme park lands of all time. You may hear me say that a lot, but here I truly mean it. You could spend the entire day in Super Nintendo World and not ride a single ride and be having the time of your life. I know I said that about Epcot, but here I mean it even more so. To prove my point, I really don't love the rides in Super Nintendo World. Bowser's Challenge has an amazing queue, but the augmented reality on the ride just does not work for me. Minecart Madness is extremely rough for some reason, which I get is the point, but it almost feels too rough. Yoshi's Adventure is a slow moving dark ride, and it's also not one of my favorites, but I love Yoshi, so it kinda gets a pass. Other than the rides, which I get are a big factor, Super Nintendo World is one of my favorite spots to be, literally in the entire world. Up next is Dark Universe, and as a fan of horror, this land is awesome. Monsters Unchained is one of the best dark rides Universal has ever created, easily top 2. And the animatronics are breathtaking. This has one of my favorite pre-shows of all time, and that includes both of them. They are both very short and don't take up a lot of your time. The ride itself is mind-blowing and actually terrifying. The only thing I would say about this ride that I wish was different is that you can really see all the backstage stuff all over the place, like lights and curtains, and the animatronics break down every 10 seconds, but other than that, it's near perfect. The theming in the land itself is super immersive with the walk-around characters and the old-looking building. Unfortunately, Curse of the Werewolf was down the whole time I was there, so I cannot speak on that one. The immersion here is second to none, and it really feels like you are walking around a Universal Monsters movie. In terms of immersion, this and Super Nintendo World I would put as the most immersive land. This doesn't mean best, although it might as well. I just mean how immersed I am into the land. Next, we have the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and this is a pretty decent land. I would say it's my least favorite of the 3 Harry Potter lands, but don't think that's me dissing the land. I don't really have a lot of thoughts on the land other than the ride. Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry has the most immersive queue I have ever seen. You are seriously there in the Ministry. No expense was spared on the queue of this ride. Truly breathtaking. Pictures and videos do not do it justice. The ride itself is definitely good, I just wish it wasn't so reliant on screens. The physical sets that are present here are great, and the animatronics of the Death Eaters could easily be mistaken for actual actors. The other animatronics with projected faces are good except for the faces. It looks creepy, to be honest. The show Le Cirque Arcanus is pretty good, but it's not my favorite. It's worth doing though if you love the Fantastic Beast films. Moving on from Harry Potter, we have the Isle of Berk, which is once again visually stunning. It feels like you are right there in the world of How to Train Your Dragon. Really, my favorite part about this land is just looking at it. Hiccup's Wing Gliders is a pretty decent family coaster, and Dragon Racers Rally is a typical flat ride. I did not get to experience Fire Drill, but I've been on similar attractions, and it's a welcome addition to the land. I also have to mention one of the best theme park shows I have ever seen, the Untrainable Dragon. It is spectacular and a must-do. I will be seeing this every time I visit Epic Universe. So why is Epic Universe only number 3? Aside from Stardust Racers and Monsters Unchained, the rides here aren't all great, and some of them leave a lot to be desired. The ride lineup is not bad or even close to it, but for me, there's only 2 big standouts, with the Ministry of Magic being almost a third. This will change over time as the park isn't even 2 years old yet, and there are still plenty of developments to be made. The top 2 have just had more time to develop and cement themselves as top tier theme parks, but Epic Universe has a very fair shot to one day overtake both of them. We all know now what the top 2 is going to be, and as of right now, I have Magic Kingdom as my second place pick, but it's so close that the next time I visit, it might take the number 1 spot. I won't waste too much time explaining my top 2 parks on the list because it's pretty self-explanatory. Haunted Mansion, Space Mountain, Pirates of the Caribbean, Peter Pan, Big Thunder Mountain are all classics and nothing really compares to them. The People Mover is also fantastic and a truly unique experience. There's also Tron, which I love even though it's a bit short, and Tiana's, which I also really enjoy. The sheer amount of attractions at this park just catapults it into at least the number 2 spot. There are so many supporting rides that there's always something to do, and there's no chance you could do it all in one day or even 2 for that matter. Tomorrowland has always been one of my favorite lands, and I have so much nostalgia for it. The charm and atmosphere here is like actual magic, and there's a reason it's the most visited park in the entire world. I almost had to put it at number 1 out of respect. But why isn't it number one? Well, even though I love family rides, I am also a thrill seeker, and Magic Kingdom is somewhat lacking in the thrill department. Villains Land and Radiator Springs may change that, but for now, I'm going to have to keep Magic Kingdom as number 2. An amazing thrill ride would do wonders for this park. By process of elimination, you have figured out that number 1 is Islands of Adventure, which is not only my favorite park in Florida, but my favorite park in the entire world. Where do I even begin? First and foremost, the selection of IPs are another reason aside from thrills as to why this is number 1. Spider-Man, the Hulk, Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, and Harry Potter happen to be some of my favorite movie series ever, so I may be a bit biased. However, it definitely helps that all the rides range from good to the best of the best. The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man is an incredible dark ride and features some of my favorite villains from Spider-Man, as well as of course Spider-Man. And then you have the Hulk, which has a great setting and a unique launch. Jurassic Park River Adventure is an all-time classic with one of the coolest animatronics ever. Speaking of coolest animatronic ever, Reign of Kong has an amazing animatronic of Kong, however the ride doesn't do too much for me. Velocicoaster is my second favorite roller coaster ever, and the setting is perfect. A roller coaster inside a raptor enclosure is awesome. Then of course we have the original Harry Potter land in Hogsmeade, and this is my favorite of the 3 Harry Potter lands. Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure is the greatest family coaster ever built, and it is in my top 10 roller coasters without a doubt. And then you move up to Hogwarts Castle, and remember when I said Monsters Unchained is in the top 2 dark rides at Universal? Yeah, this is number 1. I may be a bit biased because I love Harry Potter, but this is by far the ride I have been on the most in all of Florida, and I think it's a perfect attraction. Islands of Adventure is a theme park enthusiast paradise, no matter what kind of rides you like. It has it all. Thrill rides, family rides, coasters, dark rides, water rides, flat rides. The one thing it doesn't have is shows, but we'll let that slide for now. I completely understand if you have Magic Kingdom over this, but when it comes to what I want in a theme park, this is it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the ranking. Let me know in the comments how you would rank the parks, because I'm sure it's not the same as mine. I would also like to announce channel memberships. So if you want to support the channel and receive a member shout out, please consider hitting that join button. But of course, no pressure. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I apologize for the long wait in between videos, so thank you all for being patient. Anyway, subscribe and all that, and I will see you guys in the next video.